Spectre detectors welcome you to make contact.
Hey, oh, it's creepy. And I for the introduction to that because it's a bit dated. But we've got Jo back with us. Hi, Jo.
Hiya.
Just come to carry on this conversation that everybody kept commenting me about and messaging me. When's Jo coming back on? We need to find out about this demonology.
That's so sweet.
I know. So how are you?
I'm really good. It's a funny thing when you're talking about this kind of subject. I find it does affect my energy during the day. It's it's really interesting. You find that spirits seem to know that's what you're going to be talking about. And so I did protection before we began tonight. I put protection around my room, and because when you start to talk about dark energy, dark force energies, you can attract them. It's as simple as that, in my experience anyway. So I always make sure if I'm talking about something like this, I set that intention that I'm not wanting to draw it to me. And then I put protection around as I would if I was doing a reading or anything else, just so I know I'm in a safe bubble. It's really important.
Even a thought.
Yeah.
So the last time we spoke, you were telling us about how you'd gone to that, I think it was a hen party, and they were all drunk, and you were given readings, and you came home and you had an attachment and you needed help with it. And that made you more interested, because it does, because you want to know why. How does that happen?
Understand it. It was quite terrifying, actually, because as I said before, and I'm not going to go over the whole thing again, but I had a taste of blood in my mouth when I got there. Then the reading, the other lady medium that was there couldn't read. And the readings I done they were good, but they weren't my best. And when I left there, I felt really angry. The other medium with me felt really angry. It was really late at night, so I went to bed. In the morning, I had a shower. And I was actually having thoughts of hurting myself in the shower, which is not me at all. I was thinking, I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to be here anymore, which is just not, anyone who knows me knows that's not me. And I realised what was happening, and I thought, this is weird. This is not good. I don't like this. I went downstairs and something shifted in my body. My daughter was stood in the dining room, and she must have only been about 12. And I knew, as I looked at her, I knew it wasn't me looking at her. I knew that I'd been overshadowed by something. And she actually screamed because she saw a face over my face.
Yeah.
And the way it looked at her frightened her. And I was still present enough that I said to her, Charlotte, go and get Dad. That's what I said to her, go and get Dad. Because I wanted her out of that room. And I just stayed where I was. I stood in the dining room. It's making me go cold now.
Yeah.
And my husband come down, and he could see the overshadowing as well. It was really strong. It was a male energy. It was as dark as anything. It was horrid, really, really angry. I wouldn't let it talk. I was present enough. I mean, I was experienced enough as a medium to be able to stop the spirit from taking over. And I said to my husband, you need to call Susie, which is my best friend. She's in her 70s. She's a psychic battery. The woman is full of so much loving, healing energy.
Yeah.
There's no dark energy getting near this woman. And so she came over. Luckily, she only lives like 15 minutes away. She came over and she gave me healing. She gave me Reiki. And I could instruct her. Don't ask me how I knew, but I knew how to get it out of my body. And it was to get it into the earth. And actually, as I'm saying that, both my feet feel like people are sticking pins in my toes. So it is exactly that. It's getting it out of the body and into the earth. That's what I was told. And so that's what she did. She put her hands on my knees. She concentrated the Reiki, and she just instructed it to go down to the earth. After that happened, it actually terrified me. And it terrified me because I brought it home, and also because of the way it had projected itself at my daughter. It was really unpleasant. And so I thought, I need to know more about this. How do I protect myself against this happening? What do you do? Can I help other people? How do I know if people have got them? How, what are they? and it started this investigation and this exploration of it. And I managed to get in touch with, I had a good reputation as a medium by that point, so people knew I was credible. And so I managed to get in touch with some of the world's experts on this. And there's a lady called Sue Allen. She's retired now, but she wrote an excellent book for anyone interested in this. It's called Spirit Release. And she does it in a scientific way. This isn't, you know, what I call Glastonbury twaddle or woo-woo. You know, it's not all that. It's really grounded. It's really based in proper healing science and done in a way that isn't glorifying it, or you know, it's not turning it into Hollywood kind of horror or anything. She's very just down the line and methodical about it. And I read her book, then I booked myself on to do a course with her. And the woman is brilliant. Her advice was excellent, but it only because she was so grounded and because she was so kind of matter of fact and practical about it. The side I needed to understand, which was a bit more human, a bit more, why does this happen? How does it manifest? There wasn't so much of that in there. So I then explored other ways, and there's something called the Spirit Release Forum. I joined that. I become a member of that. A man called David Furlong, who actually mapped out some of the ley lines across Britain. He's a really amazing healer. He's written loads of books, and he teaches spirit release, and he teaches you how to recognize, they call them dark force energies, DFEs. And again, it started what's been maybe, God, a 5 or 6 year journey with learning about that.
Blimey.
So what happened was, what I believe is spirit wanted me to understand what they were, because they were going to bring me people with them. Thanks very much. So
Happy Christmas.
So in my healing work, and I know there's that argument that people say, if you're a demonologist, you find demons. If you're a healer, you find people to be healed. You know, you find, if you're a paranormal investigator, you'll find ghosts.
Like attracts like.
Exactly. And if you've got a one-pointed attention, that's what you're going to find. But I really don't think that was the case, because I was not looking for them. I didn't want to find them. I'd had that horrible experience. Exactly. And so what happened was, I started to have people arrive for healing, and something would happen to me. My hackles would go up. I'd get the same feeling as I had when I walked into that house, often that taste of blood in my mouth, which became kind of like the calling card. And different things that happened to my body, whereby I knew that there was something attached to this person, not necessarily a dark force energy. It could just be a lost soul. It could be a discarnate spirit. It could be of animal origin. It can just be stuck energy. But I always knew by how my body responded to the person when they arrived, if they had attachments. That's what I call them. And I kind of define attachments as any energy that shouldn't be there. A bit like a weed, you know, we define a weed as a plant that's in the wrong place. It's a bit like that with attachments. It's energy that's in the wrong place. And my first way of working with it was to tell it off, to say, you have no right to be here, get out, right? Because that's my personality. I don't put up with crap, and it shouldn't have been there, get out. Totally the wrong way of dealing with it. Totally the wrong way of dealing with it, because you've got to open your mind, anyone watching this, and you're either going to believe me or you're not, and that's your stuff. But I can only tell you it as I understand it and I've experienced it. It can hide. And I actually found that it would hide behind the ribs, or it would hide in the spine, or it would hide behind bits that I wasn't seeing. So I'd think I'd cleared it, and they would come to me next time for healing, and it had come back. Or the issues that they were having with this attachment didn't go away. And I'm like, but I got rid of it. I couldn't see it. And spirit started to show me that energy can obviously hide within the body, especially if it's darker energy. And what I mean by darker energy is negative energy. And so a couple of experiences. Do you want to hear about a couple of the experiences?
Yeah, go on.
Right.
Are you going to put me off?
No, hopefully not. It's all solvable. I had a lady come for healing. She and actually Susie came to rescue again on this one, but this lady came for healing. She'd had issues with her womb, really, really bad issues with her womb. I knew her, but I didn't know her extremely well. I didn't know everything about her, but I'd done enough of you do a client assessment when they come and you fill out the treatment form and all this. So I knew she was compos mentis. I knew she was well. She hadn't suffered with any kind of mental disorders. She was working as a professional. She was a really sound, sensible lady. But she'd had issues with her womb that were getting her into hospital every month. She had this severe ill health. She tried everything, and most of the time I'm everyone's last resort because they've tried everything else, and then they end up here. And so I had her on the bed in my healing room, and I put my hands on her stomach, and I just saw this black mass in her stomach that looked like tar. And this is in my mind's eye.
Yeah.
And Spirit has shown me, and within it I could see eyes moving. Some of the eyes didn't look very nice, some of the faces didn't look very nice, and I heard my guide say to me, there are curses here, there is black magic and curses here. I'd never come across that before in healing. So I did a clearing. It made no difference whatsoever. I called in angelic energy to help me. It held the space. I then got poor Susie over because I realised I needed two of us. I needed someone to hold the space while I did the clearing.
Yeah.
And I decided to ask the lady certain questions that were given to me by Spirit. So I said to her, and this sounds really random, but I said, have you ever been to Africa? She said, yeah. Okay. Have you been involved with anyone in Africa? Because I'm sensing some kind of contract, like a binding contract. She said, yes, I was married to someone in Africa.
Ooh.
I thought, okay. I said, was it tribal? Yes. They were part of a tribe. Yes. He was quite high up in this tribe. And I knew that what Spirit was telling me was correct. How I'd perceived it was correct. She said his mother hated me and she cursed me. And I said, yeah, she really did. And then I realized this mass in her stomach was partly fear-based, where this lady had really believed this curse, which had created fear-based energy, but also there were curses and negative energies and just kind of spite and psychic attack, really, from these people that had filled up her womb space and her tummy space. So then I called in angels to help me. And this is really amazing what happened, because Susie was with me, and I told Susie what was happening. And so Susie's job was as the battery. So she's pouring healing energy in while I'm doing the work. And I saw a man appear behind Susie, a spirit man, and he started talking in Latin. And when you hear Latin, it's never a good thing when you're doing this
Latin
kind of thing.
On an investigation.
Normally, it's not a good thing normally.
No, it wasn't.
And I saw this man clear as day, and I said to Susie, there's a man behind you. I described him, and I said, he's talking in Latin. She said, that's my dad. He spoke Latin.
Oh, well, that's different.
And then I realised her dad had actually come to help. Oh. So he was helping hold space, which was the first time I ever experienced Spirit coming in to help. We removed this thing. She actually lifted off at the table at one point by about that much, but she actually lifted off, and two of us saw it. So it wasn't my imagination or anything. We actually both saw it. And then the healing of fish, she was exhausted, poor lady. And she went home. How much you tell the client is up to you. I tend to tell them the bare minimum because I don't want to scare them. But the upshot was she stopped having episodes of having to go into hospital. Her womb settled down. In fact, from the point that we did that work, things got so much better for her. And her life's transformed since, because that energy was just taking over everything. So that was in a healing perspective, seeing that energy. And every time I cleared something, it was a learning curve, because you're going in. This is where I know in like films of demonic energies and things like that, they talk about faith, and it's normally a priest and everything else. But I'm telling you now, you do have to have faith, but the faith has to be in yourself, and the faith has to be in the light. For me, it's not about religion. I don't see any religion or belief system. No, nothing like that involved in what I do. It's trusting in the angels, it's trusting in the light, and it's trusting that the universe always wants to create balance. So so once I'd done that, I then thought I need to learn about this more, and that led down a complete rabbit hole. And I met lots of different people, I listened to lots of different things, I've read lots of different things, spoke to lots of different influential people in that world, and kind of devised my own way of working with it and healing it along with my guides. And then as it evolved, I ended up being asked to do house clearing and space clearing, and that's when I really did come across some negative nasties. What would happen, just as give an example, I was asked to go and help this lady who'd had some really bad experiences with another woman. She had done other healing work and was convinced that this woman had either kind of sent cords of negative energy, or that this woman herself had an attachment that was then affecting the lady that I was asked to help. Like I said, you either believe or you don't believe. On the way there, just driving there, because I can't drive because of my eyesight, and all of that business. So my husband drives me. He is a salesman, so he drives for a living. So his driving's really good. He's very sensible. Everything that could have happened on that drive to that woman's house happened.
I've heard of that before.
Except for getting a flat tire. Dark energy will try and stop you getting there. It's almost like the minute I make the appointment to go and do the work, it transpires to try and stop me getting there. And so I have to then counteract that by asking for those obstacles and things to be removed. And I talk to people about demons and demonic energy. Personally, I don't call it that. And I don't believe that there is. I'm saying that. And even as I'm saying it, I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to get told off by spirit. See, to me, demonic is religious. I call them dark force energies. That's what they are to me. So if I say a dark force energy, that might be what you would call demonic, or what other people call demonic. To me, it's dark force energy. And I think that exists everywhere. Some people can be a dark force energy all of their own. If you think about people in history, or people you know, or you know. But when you actually start to dig into it, it is varied and very, very complex. And one of the things that blew my mind was that spirit people can have attachments, not just living people. And when I started to clear houses and property, I was having a normal evening. I get a phone call from my brother. I think I've told you a part of this, but my brother had been laying a floor. He's a general builder. He'd been laying a floor, but it was travertine marble that was £100 a tile. And the lady whose house it was a royal. She was a dignitary, and she was chucking salt everywhere. And my brother said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm getting rid of the negative energy in the house, Robert. Don't worry about it." Of course, it was getting on his nerves because he was tiling. So he said, "Joe, you're going to have to come here and help her." And he hadn't really supported my work up until then in that way. And when I got there, I had an appointment with this lady. She had a picture of herself with the Queen on the wall. You know, this lady was a princess, and it was all a bit mind-blowing. And as it transpired, she was living in a house that was kind of 14th century and had been kept that way as well. It was more or less as it would have been in those days, apart from, you know, the mod cons that had been fitted in. But it wasn't one of these old houses that had been smashed apart and made to look modern. It looked as it would have in those days. And they'd built this house on another part of her land. She had about 500 acres, 800 acres. And they'd built a house from scratch on part of a footprint of an older house. And this, I mean, you guys would have loved it. This other house, and what had happened was the original house, the footprint of the house, had been burnt down. The house had been burnt down, and what had happened was the dad had taken on a gambling debt. And this was kind of like in the 1600s. He had taken on gambling debts. They'd gone to burn his house down and didn't realise his wife and kids were in there and killed them all. He came home and shot himself. And that all happened in this house. And then they'd built a new house on top of it. And that house footprint comprised of quarter of this new building, and no one had ever cleared it. No one had ever done any kind of blessing on it to clear the energy away. It had just literally been built on top of it. And I picked all of that up, or even just driving there. And they were just astonished that I'd picked up on this story. When I went into that house, it was bone chilling. It was just, there was lots of dark energy around. And I think probably because of the tragedy that had happened there and the difficulties that had happened there, that can then act as a magnet. The grief and pain and tragedy and hatred and, you know, all of those things was acting as a funnel, and it can sometimes open what I call a portal or a doorway. And we have doorways which go up and we have doorways which go down, and again, that's a religious connotation, but you know, there's doorways that let the light in and there's doorways that let the darkness in, and some do both. This one was one that let the darkness in, and we can create them. Tragedy can create them. Horrible and evil events can create them, because the minute that thing happens, it's a magnet. And so I walked in there and I got that taste of blood in my mouth, which is, like I say, it's my classic thing. I felt sick. I felt giddy. I had to get out of the building. And I realized then that I just thought, this is too much for me on my own. So then I called some of the world's experts that I'd made friends with in this journey to understand the energy. And a lovely man called Adrian Incledon-Weber, he wrote a book called Heal Your House. He's a really close friend of mine now, and I love him to bits. And I'd read his book because it had been part of my journey to read his book. And I hadn't met him at this point. And I just asked for his help. I messaged him and said, look, this is what's happened. I'm in over my head. I've read your book. I know I can trust you. This is a VIP and a dignitary. And he came. Within a few days, he came up there and we worked on it together. And we did find some really horrible energy. In one of the barns, I would go in there and I would see bodies piled up in my mind's eye. And what has happened was they'd had slaves from the 15th, 16th century to dig the ponds and do all work. But there had been some kind, and we managed with the local library in Devon. We were able to verify all of it, which was wonderful. It was all in the record books. There had been some kind of disease like cholera or something else, and it had killed a majority of the slaves. And all they'd done was just stack their bodies up in the barn. And I found a little girl spirit that was trapped there. But again, that acts like a magnet to dark energy. And all these spirit people were trapped in this barn. They hadn't been able to leave. There were 4 particularly dark spirit that if I was going to call anything demonic, it would have been those 4. They were horrible. They made you feel sick. Their eyes glowed red, which I know is a cliche. And I have to add in there, I saw them as that. You might see them as something different. But my brain will show me the nearest thing, so I recognize what that is, and that's what it showed me. And they were swearing at me, they were threatening me, they were saying they were going to do this, that and the other. And I don't know how you are, but I don't hold any truck with that, and I tell them off. I mean, I really do stamp my ground, and I will put them in a bubble in a corner so that they can't even communicate with me. And I have a really strong set of gatekeepers, and they daren't talk to me like that more than once. But it was a case of clearing it all, and we managed to catch on CCTV, because I had a group called Cornwall Paranormal, which I don't think is operating anymore, but it was a group of people, and one of the women I'd known since I was 9 years old, so I knew I could trust them. They came up there and they had all the tech, and like you do, you know, all the equipment, and we caught some amazing things. And we actually did a spirit release and a spirit rescue of the mum and the children that had been burnt to death in the arson attack. Adrian and I managed to clear the slaves from the barn. I called them the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. They were horrible, but these 4 horrid energies were banished and sent wherever. I always ask the most appropriate place. Can you take them to the most appropriate place? Because it's not for me to know where they're meant to go. It's true. It's for spirit to know. So I always say, please take them to the most appropriate place. And oh my God, we done so much healing. But it transpired that this house was 4 stories tall. It was a mansion. It cost tens of millions to build. We found spirits right up in the top where the servants, where the princess's servants slept, actually, right in the top where the eaves were and everything. And in there they had huge dormer windows. And I said to Adrian, do you think this was a sacred site? Because we saw this tall tree. We knew a tall tree had been torn down. And both of us, without telling each other, had seen this vision of someone being hung from this tree.
Right.
And in the research, I found that used to be a druidic site.
Right.
And it actually was a henge. And once we had that information, we looked out of these top windows and you could actually see the bank.
See it.
But until you found it, you weren't looking for it, so you didn't necessarily see it. But there was this bank going all the way around, and I was sure I had some kind of past life that meant I'd been in that circle at some point. But the house was built, essentially, it would be like building a house in the middle of Stonehenge or in the middle of Avebury. You're just not meant to live there.
No.
People are not meant to live there. So they built this multi-million-pound house in the middle of essentially a sacred spot. So not only had you built this house on this place where people had been murdered and where poor slaves had been tragically treated and so awful, you've also pissed off the spirit of the place, the guardians of the place.
Yeah.
You've built this building in a henge. Now the difficulty with that kind of work, and you can find it wherever you're working with spirit, is that, and this is something someone messaged me on the weekend, it was the anniversary of her dad's passing, and she said, Jo, I'm a bit worried. I felt a really strong energy at his grave today. It felt really oppressive, like something was dancing on me, was how she put it. And I said to her, and I can psychically look if I've got permission. I'll go and have a look. And I said to her, it's not dark energy, darling, it's just strong energy. And what it was her dad making himself present, be felt.
Yeah.
And that's the thing when you're working with energy. Don't assume that there's going to be dark energy, because I work with that stuff. So spirit will put me in a place where I'm best used in service. But generally, it's very rare to come across that kind of energy. So please, anyone watching, don't go scaring yourself to think you're going to come across this all the time, because it is quite rare. And sometimes strong energy can be mistaken for negative energy, when actually what it is just strong energy. But strong energy can sometimes give us the same feeling of our hackles going up, going cold, feeling like we've been chucked in cold water. Sometimes that can just be a really powerful spirit. It doesn't mean that it's a negative spirit. That's one thing that I would say. That's something that I had to learn. Don't assume it's going to be negative. Assume it's good first.
Yeah.
And wait until you're given proper signs. You can work, if anyone working spiritually, you can work with your guides so that you have secret agreement with them that you would agree in meditation, or when you're in quiet contemplation and communicating with your guides and angels, that they give you certain physical signs. So for me, it is the taste of blood in my mouth. If I get that, I know I'm dealing with something negative. And so then I take action accordingly. So you can agree with your guides to have something like that. So you're never in that thing of you're going, is this negative or is this strong?
Yeah.
You've got a certainty there. And I was taught, if I can share with you, I was taught this thing of how we define evil, because evil does exist in the world. It's living, isn't it? We know there's people that are evil, and we know there's people that have passed that are evil. But evil energy, in my learning, is characterized by three things: fear, control, and ego. So this is how you would probably define whether something is a proper dark force energy. And when I read these definitions out, there'll be those of you watching that will know people that act in this way, not just spirit. So the first thing is the fear. So does the spirit, person, spiritual teaching or group introduce fear, either subtly or overtly at any time? Are they making you feel fearful? So if you were like yourself, you walk into a building and you suddenly felt fearful, that would be to me a little trigger that there might be something unpleasant. With people, again, if they make you feel fearful, or if they, and again with spirit, if they're saying things to you to try and scare you or frighten you, that would be a red flag for me that I need to get extra protection, or I need to take notice. The second thing is control. So does the spirit, the person, or the spiritual teaching or group block your free will at any time, either subtly or overtly, and try to control the way you're thinking and you're acting? So that's the other sign for me of if something's evil, because it will try and control you, like that spirit did with me, the way it looked at Charlotte. It was giving me thoughts to hurt myself, things like that. The third one is ego, and this is a really interesting one. Does the spirit, person, spiritual teaching or group influence or inflate your ego at any time? Is it either subtly or overtly? So is it telling you you're wonderful? Because energy can try and control you in that way as well. It'll go, oh, you're so fabulous. If we think of friends we've had where they build us up and build us up and build us up, only to tear us down at the end. It's that. So they tell you wonderful things about yourself. For example, they're saying you are superior to everyone else. You're better than everyone else. We're a superior race. If spirit's communicating like that. But like I said, not just spirit. It could be a spirit, a person, a spiritual teaching, or a spiritual group. That is, for me, that comes under dark energy, or what we might call as evil. So it's those three things: fear, control, or ego. And if you sense any of those things with spirit, with people, with spiritual teaching or a spiritual group, get out.
I've experienced
it's not.
Many years ago, I don't know whether you've heard of it, but Most Haunted, when they were huge and they were, one of the first paranormal things on TV, and it was the best things in sliced bread. Well, they went to a hotel called the Schooner, and it was at Alnmouth. And it was where smugglers were. It's really old. The smugglers used to go in the cellar and hide the things and all of that. Anyway, in this room there, a man killed his wife and his children, massacred them in a room. So me being me, and very, very fresh, and we didn't really know anything about it, just thought, I'm going to hire the Schooner Hotel. Most haunted hotel in Britain. We've only been going a year or so. We know nothing. We're going to hire it. So I did. So from here, it's about a 3-hour drive, something like that, up in the wilds of Wanny, nowhere near anything. Booked it. Hired this most haunted room. It was going great until I came across the man. So when I walked in, I felt sick, really sick. And
that's your calling card.
That is mine, because when I walk into places now and I get that sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach and I feel sick, I think I've got to be careful in here.
Yeah.
This is if it feels lovely and I don't get that, fine. So I was in that room. Bev was with us. Hannah and Shana weren't at the time. I didn't know them. He was right in my face. I could smell his breath.
Oh,
he wasn't very pleasant. He took a step forward and he held me by the throat. I could feel his fingers in my throat, and I snapped. And I just said, get your hands off me. Because I thought, I wouldn't let a man do that to me. You aren't going to do that to me. Something snapped in me, but I had to leave the room because I felt like I was going to be violently sick. So I left the room, and I'd left people in, like I'd up and left guests in there. So I composed myself, got myself right, took myself out of the situation, felt a bit better, asked my guides to step in and, hang on a minute, I'm way out my depth here. Went back in, and I'd left the voice recorder. And I've caught his voice. I've caught him talking to me. Yeah, he's just horrible. He just wasn't. You'd love it. I think he's still there, to be fair. I didn't get rid of him.
I wiped the floor with him.
So somebody has. So when we were in there, I don't know whether you can remember, it was about 7 years ago. It was probably more up north than down south. We had this awful time of people being really cruel to animals. And they were putting things in, like poisoning horses and putting things in their food and all of that. And we were discussing that. We were having a coffee break and we were sitting discussing it. And he said, yeah, and I love it. And when I listened to it, I thought, oh, you absolutely nasty piece of work. Yeah. And do you know something? I've been trying to hire that hotel to go back because I kind of feel like I've got unfinished business. But the more I talk to you, maybe I shouldn't, because every time I've tried to hire that hotel, something's happened. And I haven't been able to go.
Your guys are keeping you away.
And that's the only time that anyone's, don't get us wrong, I was punched inside at 30 East Drive and all that. I've told you all that. But I could feel his fingers on my neck. And that was a really massive wake-up call for me, because I thought, yes, you've come out and you're going to do paranormal investigations and you think it's like it is on telly. It isn't like it is on telly.
No, it
is
really
not.
isn't.
So
it really isn't.
I couldn't see him. He could see me. He had total control of the situation. And I suppose by him putting his hands on my neck, that made me snap, because something just turned on me and I just said, get your hands off me. I think I threw a few F-bombs in there, to be honest with you.
So would
I thought, you're not doing that to me. You know what I mean? You are not going to put your hands on me, because I wouldn't put up with a man doing that to me. So I'm not going to do that, you know.
Exactly. And I've done that before. We did, I had a spiritual development group that I run here. We got very close, you know, you all get to know each other so well. And one of the ladies in the group was having disturbances in her house. She was having wall lights literally ripped off the wall. She was having all sorts, and she had 2 young children, and it was really worrying her. So the whole group, we all went to her house.
Yeah.
And there were 3 horrible bloody spirits. They were just little blokes, little blacksmiths or something. They were just like real horrible little bullies.
Nasty.
And I just confined them in the corner of the room. They were calling me all sorts, but I just come over all, because of being a house mistress for all those years, I just come over all house mistress, and I just shut them in the corner, and I tell them, dark false energies are slightly different, because they are not frightened of you, and they wouldn't listen to you if you told them to get off, because they have they're not human. They've never lived. Oh, I'm hearing something there as I'm saying that. That's queer.
No, don't start. Keep your feet on that ground.
Yeah, I have. That was like a noise then as I was doing that. Maybe just a little reminder. It isn't human. It's very hard to communicate with it. You wouldn't want to engage with it, because it's got nothing it can ever say to you that's going to help you.
So it was just a nasty man then.
He was just a nasty man. Still a dark force energy, because it's negative and it's evil. He done some of those things. He frightened you. He physically tried to move you. So it's still what I would call evil, but it's manageable, because you have a physical boundary that you can set. I mean, it's really important. And it's funny, when I was first starting doing my mediumship, I took myself onto a retreat with all other, they call you a fledgling when you start to do mediumship, don't they? And it was all other fledgling mediums. And I'd gone, and I was already doing paid readings, but I hadn't had any formal training as such. So I went on this retreat with a really super experienced medium, and she had 2 other really experienced mediums helping her. And I went all kind of, I'm going to get loads out of it. I'll be able to do. Oh my God, they tortured me all weekend. They were so hard on me. In fact, I nearly went home on the second day, because they gave me such a hard time, because I was being cocky, I think. I don't know, but they got my number. But actually, it brought me down a peg or 2. And she pulled me to one side at the end, and she said, I'm sorry I gave you such a hard time. She said, but your potential's huge. She said, but before you go and do anything else, you need to know your mediumship. And anyway, I went home, and it stuck in my head, that phrase, know your mediumship. You need to know your mediumship. I thought, what does she mean? What is she talking about? I need to know my mediumship. And she'd said to me, you know, you could stand up in stadiums, you could stand up in theatres, you could do readings on stage. Your potential's massive. You have to know your mediumship. Well, I had no intention of doing that. But this phrase, know your mediumship, it wasn't until years later, when I come across these really horrible energies and what I would call a dark force energy, not human, I realized what she meant about knowing my mediumship. And it was knowing my guides, it was knowing my signs, knowing my limitations, and knowing my boundaries. And what I would say is, if you are going to go and work, or if you think that in your work you're going to come across this kind of energy, you have to be working hand in glove with your guides. You have to be able to trust that they will keep you safe at all times. Because if you don't have that, then you can have times where they'll grab your throat, or you'll have times where they can encroach, like I did. I had that overshadowing. I didn't have that connection with my guides at that point, where I could adequately expect them to keep me safe. And the thing with guides is, you have your free will. Unless you ask them to do it, they're not going to just do it for you. They'll keep you safe, and they did keep you safe, because they gave you the strength to get it off and get rid of it. So they did help you. But we both could have gone a bit further, like me bringing that thing home. If I'd have known, I would have said, I don't want anything to ever attach to me, and I certainly don't want it to come in the home.
Well, the thing is now, I didn't work with, I mean, I do work with my guides now, because we used to do meditation class with Lorraine, who was putting messages on, and Dean, and we learned to work closely with our guides. And I think I've told you about my guide anyway, he's a Hell's Angel.
They're amazing, yeah.
He's a Hell's Angel called Andrew, and he wears really thick glasses. So his calling card to me is he puts his glasses on my face.
And you can feel it.
And I can feel it. It's really heavy.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So I know now that when he's around, but with him being a Hell's Angel, it's more, if I'm fearful of something, or I think, I'm not really 100% comfortable with this, I feel him as if to say, come on, I've got your back. Just he's
not letting anything happen to you.
Yeah,
I'm being told that now.
Yeah, and I know that.
The other thing that you'll find with him is he does give you taste in your mouth. He'll give you certain tastes in your mouth, Andrew will. Yeah. And I had the same thing with my main gatekeeper. He must have a big nose, because I get this feeling of my nose getting bigger and this pressure. So I know when he's there, I can actually feel it like cobwebby across here.
But it's funny because I can feel his glasses now. So
he's showing you, he's showing you,
But that's what he does. It fascinates me, because we tried to do. I think I told you we tried to do table tipping for so long, and it was actually Andrew that said to me, "You're using everybody else's tables. That's got all this energy in. You need your own table." Well, and that's what he told me.
It's interesting you should bring that up, because that's what I was going to touch on next, if it's okay. Is how energy can actually attach itself and get into things. So dark force energies, negative energies, whatever you want to call it, you can call it demonic if that's your belief system, but I'll call it a dark force energy. They can attach to things. It doesn't have to be living. They don't need a life force to survive somewhere. They thrive better and grow if they're attached to a life force, because they'll take your energy, but they don't need that to exist somewhere. And this sounds like a corny made-up story, but I promise you it's 100% true. My mum travelled across Africa, and my husband used to do this thing where he used to do Michael Caine, and he used to say, "Don't you chuck that bloody spear at me." All right, it was like a running family joke. So my mum went to Zulu lands and bought Jason a Zulu spear and shield. Oh. She didn't just buy him a shield and spear. She bought it from the village tribal witch doctor. Oh. And she brought them back to the UK. All right. And she brought them to our house. And I said to Jason, they're not coming in the house until I've smudged them. So we put them in the porch. I said to Jason, film me smudging these. I didn't just have sage. I actually had rue, and I had Palo Santo, and I had another concoction that really does clear negative energy, curses, black magic, anything fun stuff. When I held the smoke underneath this spear, it was only a small spear. It was only about that big. The smoke was moving around it. It wasn't even going anywhere near it. Did it with the shield. It wasn't, because it had dark protective energy around it. So I had to clear it in a different way. And I used the clearing I would use if I was clearing a person. And I use an ultrafine net of light, which I'll happily share with anybody who wants to know. But I move that through the item and it clears anything that's in it. Right. It's quite a lot. It takes a long time, but you can do it. Put that through it and then put the smudge underneath, and the smoke went through everything. And so there's also incidents where people have contacted me. They've started to have things happen in their house. They're feeling ill. They've been perfectly good health, and all of a sudden they're getting every illness. And I'll say, have you bought anything new into the house in the last 7 days? And it's invariably yes, and it's invariably secondhand. So they've gone and bought an antique or a secondhand book.
Because a lady contacted me today about a shop in Bishop Auckland. Go back a step. A lady contacted me a while ago. It was her friend and asked for some advice, and I gave her some advice, and it was after our last show. Anyway, today she messaged me and she said, will you come and investigate my shop in Bishop Auckland? So I didn't know too much about it. And it turns out that they bought 2 pictures from an antique shop, and that's when it started. So I'm going to go. I can't fit it in until July, but I know what I'm kind of, I know. But the thing is, I can't be everywhere. It's
No,
just
you
not my
can't.
full-time
You
job.
can't help everyone. Yeah, exactly. Well, we need it to be your full-time job, girl.
Oh, I just
People
can't.
need you.
So
But
yes, that's what it is.
You can. I'll have to teach you, and then it will save you so much time, because the safest way to do it is remotely. It's not actually to go there. You can, as the practitioner, if you do it remotely, you can actually clear the item with perfect safety to you, so you're not actually going and getting in the vicinity of it. And it's a bit like distance healing works. You can do it remotely. Yeah. You can remote view, and that's, my guides told me that's what I needed to do, because I would actually go somewhere, and whatever those people are experiencing, I would experience for about 2 or 3 days after in my body, because I'm so sensitive. And so working remotely was better for me. The other thing is, you create the safe space around you, and you haven't got the client, with the greatest of respect, projecting their ideas of what it is and things like that. So that's the way that I work now, is remotely, when I clear places, people, things. But I did do an interesting one over in Devon, in a place called Budley Salterton. A lady contacted me, and they had the most beautiful house, and they'd had just a random fire. They never worked out, the fireman never worked out how this fire started, but it more or less burnt the whole house down. And they'd just completed £100,000 renovation of this cottage, a thatched cottage. And she was convinced, because of things were happening to them, they were all ill. Lots of things are happening. And then her father-in-law had died in the house, and she asked me, would I have a look, just in case? Would I have a look? It took me probably 10 days to work on this house. It was so thick with negative stuff. There was all manner of things. I mean, I'll check. I think there's 33 things in my list that I check for.
Yeah.
That Adrian taught me. Yeah. You check for literally everything, right down to geopathic stress and chakra balancing of the people. Right, starting from, are there any lost souls in the house, or any trapped spirits? You literally check for all these 33 things. And within that is dark force energies. I call them lower energy beings, and they sometimes have tentacles and seeds, and it's just, you wouldn't believe what I found and seen. But it turned out, when I checked this house, the main thing about it was a curse. And again, like you with the research, I'm compelled to validate what I found if I can. So I'll get my results, and then I'll check if there's anything. I don't check if there's anything and then look for it. I go by what I found first, and then research the history. And I come across this female spirit in the house. In fact, she had over 20 discarnate souls in her house, and most of them were benign. They'd seen the energy. There was 2 portals in the house, 2 energy portals. That to spirit looks like light, or the light, and they think it's the light, a bit like a moth to a flame, and then they get stuck there. And so most of them easy to move on. There were some real characters in that house, but they were easy to move on. And then I come across this one woman, and initially I did think she was a dark force energy, because she had all those hallmarks that I talked about, the fear, the control, and the ego. And she was saying to me, oh, you're an amazing being. It's so wonderful to meet you. You're wonderful. You don't need to clear me. I don't need clearing. I'm meant to be here.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Anyway, I got her to tell me her story, and she was what we would call a witch now, but then she saw herself as a wise woman.
Right.
She had quite benignly lived in that house, her and her husband. Her husband died, and the person that they rented the house from, because it was owned by the landowner at the time, and her husband worked for them, when he died, they tried to kick her out. They wouldn't let her stay there. The agreement had been that she could stay there until she died, but they decided no, they wanted her out. When they kicked her out, she cursed whoever lived in that house. She put the curse in, and there it had sat. And the house had actually been empty for 30 years until these people moved in. And of course, the curse then kicked in. Clearing that curse, you'd think, wouldn't you, that woman would be evil or horrible, but she was the opposite. She needed compassion, she needed love, she needed forgiveness and healing. And actually, I found her in the history books. I found the whole case. When she'd been kicked out of the house, she went and lived with another woman, which apparently was quite common. She rented a room in someone else's house. And time after time, she was attacked by locals. They would throw fruit at her because she was an old crone by now. she was accused of witchcraft. It's the 1600s, and they ended up hanging her in the village for witchcraft.
That sounds like
her
a book.
Spirit was, oh, you would have. I'll have to share it with you sometime. Amazing. But she needed so much healing. But the amazing thing was, once that was all healed, the people in the house started to get better. I mean, there was other stuff going on that I can't go into because it's private, but it really did clear about 80% of what was happening in that house. And actually it turned out that lady, one of her children, was super sensitive to energy, which hadn't helped.
No,
it had compounded problems. But you never know what you're going to find when you go and do a house healing or a person healing or items. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, was realizing that books could hold attachments and items as well. I think I always say to people, if you bring anything new into the house, the amount of friends I've shown how to clear it before they put it in the house, even if it's a new thing. I mean, you think about, you buy something from IKEA, that what that person's been through in the factory to make your item, or clothing from like Primark, where someone's, under slave labor. It doesn't necessarily have to be dead people or spirit energy from that. It can be human manifest. And this is the other thing I was going to mention, is human, I call them human manifested life forms or human manifested thought forms. And that's where I was asked to clear a house. This house had, you call them divorce houses. The last 3 couples that lived in that house had all had really acrimonious divorces. But when they moved in, they were really happy. And I was asked to go and do one in Taunton, which was actually built where the Monmouth Rebellion marched through. And it was from the time of the Monmouth Rebellion, this house was really old. And that was a divorce house. Everyone that had ever lived there had monumental problems the minute they moved in. And one of them I went to, and it was a family party I'd been invited to because I'd got to know the family so well. And this bloody thing was under the stairs. And the grandmother said to me, I've just been in to check a couple of things, the lights or whatever it was, because the fuse box was in there. Yeah. She said, there's a horrible, horrible feeling in there. Well, I opened the door and I could feel it. And I thought, I'm not doing that at a party. And I shut the door.
No.
And I went back another day. Another house in the same, actually on the same energy line. It was only about 500 yards. And this was a weird synchronicity. It was about 500 yards away, this other house. And it was my daughter's friend's house, their family home. And they'd seen spirit people and all sorts in the house. Another really haunted house. But it was all in the cellar. And I went down in the cellar and I could feel the portal was down there, and I'd sealed it all up and I'd cleared everything and I'd got everything out. When I'd done the divorce house, which was only 500 yards away, the lady who lived in the house where I'd worked in the cellar grew up in the house that was the divorce house. It's like the energy was similar, but I used to see the woman, the spirit lady. She was a bit like the lady in black. She was really oppressive. And I'd see her, if I was in the back garden, I'd see her in the top window. Right. And she used to try and oppress the children. She was trying to control the children. So I did help her move on. Not an evil presence, just an oppressive.
Yeah.
Not pleasant.
I mean, when we were at Jimmy Allen's, which we've talked about, which was the prison, we sat in the bar upstairs, and some of the ladies that came, they're quite regular. They were sat in this area. They'd chosen an area, just like you do. You walk in, you choose a seat. And that was some kind of opening a portal. They all had headaches. They could feel static. Anyway, when we went over, I went over with Hannah, and we felt, and you could feel it. And not only could you feel it, you could make it out, the shape, when you moved your hand.
Wow.
You could literally feel it. And when they moved, the ladies would probably, I don't know if they'll be on, but when they moved, the headache went. It was so static. The energy in that area was unbelievable. So that was, and like you were saying, if nasty things have happened in a building, well, that was a prison.
Exactly. It was exactly. I was a couple of things in that is you'll laugh. Me and Charlotte, my daughter, because my daughter's actually, her gifts are stronger than mine, but she doesn't use them. She's only 20 and she's not interested. We couldn't go in Asda in Taunton because it was so oppressive. Like, we would go in there, and before we'd got 3 aisles down, we both felt sick. We had headaches. I researched it, and there was a really bad battle where they've built that.
Where it was.
Where it is. I can go into somewhere and I'll know if there's bodies under the ground. I'll know without anyone telling me. I just know there's bodies built there, buried there. And it's knowing and trusting. I mean, how many of us are walking around and getting those things of headaches or feeling uncomfortable or our bones are aching, and we just put it off as something we've eaten or we've got a headache, and actually it's the place you're in. I think our bodies, I mean, we talk about dowsing, and I've trained as a master dowser. That's what I would be described as. But I don't need a pendulum or dowsing rods. My body's my dowsing instrument, and so is everybody's, right? When I teach people body dowsing, they're like blown away by it because it's so simple. You don't need another tool. Your body is tuned in to know whether you should be somewhere or not. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing, isn't it? Because when I've told you before, when we go on paranormal investigations, and I'll say to people, if you have a headache suddenly come on that you didn't have, if you suddenly feel sick, if you get a pain in your leg, if you're this, if you're that, let us know. And the amount of people say, "Hey, I've got this," and I'll say, "Don't feel uncomfortable telling me. Don't sit in silence with that. Tell me." And then I'll say, right, and I'll talk to the spirit and say, right, she knows that you had a problem with your head. Take that away now. And it goes, and they'll go, blimey.
Yeah. And there's something else that you can do as well, and what everyone should actually do if you're working spiritually, especially, is if you're connecting in a meditation, if you're connecting in a contemplation, if you're going into work with spirit and you're talking with spirit, there's a simple technique which will save you so much time, pain, effort, and ridiculousness. The law of the universe is, if you ask spirit something 3 times, they have to tell you the truth before the 3rd question. And so the question to ask is, are you a being of light? So if you are in any doubt, and I would urge you, anybody watching, if you are in a meditation to meet your spirit guide and a spirit guide appears, they will not mind if you ask them this question. If they mind, it's not your spirit guide, and it's not something like, so you ask them 3 times, are you a being of light? Are you a being of light? Give them a chance to answer each time. If they say no, even just once out of the 3, you tell it to leave. You would do that thing of, I'm not communicating with you, and you say, can my guides please take that away?
Right.
Only communicate with it if you get 3 yeses. Because dark energy, in my experience, and I have had thousands of hours of experience at doing this, it will pretend to be the light. It will pretend to be your guide. It will pretend to be your angel, right? It's not going to appear as some dark being with red eyes.
Yeah.
If it wants to control you, manipulate you, affect you, or get you to do what it wants you to do, or even just play with you and steal your energy, it's not going to appear as some demonic dog or some horrible creature. It's going to look like a unicorn or that's not to say anyone who sees mythical beings that it's a demon. I'm not saying that. All right. Don't get up in arms. What I'm saying is, and I'm sorry if I sound like a school teacher here, all my students, I'm so strict and I get quite shitty over this. If you are working spiritually, take responsibility for your energy and make sure you're working safe. You have a responsibility to yourself, your family, and everyone else to work safely. Just use that one technique. Please, please, please. Are you a being of light 3 times? And if you get no on any one of the replies, you tell your guides, or very politely ask your guides, get rid of it. Take it to the most appropriate place for healing and transformation. Because you will be amazed how many. I had this one. I had womb cancer, and I was waiting for my operation. It was a few days before, and I was very vulnerable. And I went on this course to communicate with animals. So I can communicate with animals. And at the time, I was really, really loving it. I'd met a lovely teacher, and I was at this group. And during the break, this woman said to me, how do you know what you're communicating with, and how do you know if it's good or not? And I told her this technique. And another lady there just absolutely hit the roof and kicked off. And she said to me that I was being controlling and I shouldn't be telling people to ask these questions. And she actually sat there and told me, and she said these words, I have a direct communication with God.
Oh,
I don't need to ask if it's a being of light. I talk directly to God. And I was so taken aback, and immediately I knew there was dark energy there with that woman. And she didn't stop there. She actually had me in tears to the point where I had to go home because she upset me that much. So, and I'm not a weak woman. So
Yeah.
for me to say that someone I think I was vulnerable because I knew I had
Yeah,
cancer at that point. So but you will meet other spiritual people that are invested with darker energy. And that's why I said, don't just look for the fear, the control, and the ego. Don't just look with spirit, all right? Look with the people that are around you, any teaching or any group teaching. If it's telling you you're better than anyone else, if it's trying to control you with fear, you need to be mindful and look at your teaching. Make sure who you're learning from. And Elaine, you're an amazing teacher of these things. You've got experience and you're showing people how to do it responsibly. And the other thing I love about the way you work is your respect to spirit. Because this is the other thing. You'll see these people working with what they would say are demons or dark energy. And they're rude. They're rude. And they shout at them and they swear at them. Don't do that.
I know.
Treat
The
them with
very
the
first
same
one I
respect.
went on. Very first one, when I didn't do it myself. And as you know, I went with somebody else. And that's the reason I thought I could do it better myself. They were whistling it like a dog. They were whistling, come on.
That's
and I was
outrageous.
thinking, if I was a spirit and you were doing to me like that,
they'd have it.
Yeah. And I thought, and it was awful. It was, come on, show us how strong do you think you are? It was like that kind of thing. And I thought, oh, you've just, no. And I left early. I didn't stay all night. I thought, I can't stand this any longer. It's just,
it's not your level of respect of working with spirit.
No, and that's how I decided that day when we started off, May and Beverly, we are not going to work like that. That is not. Yeah. That's not how we work.
That's what I love about the way you work.
And I talk to spirit exactly the same as I would talk to a person.
Which is how
exactly
we
the same.
It's outrageous. And when I've spoken to dark force energies, and I mean some of the worst of the worst, I still speak to them how I would any other spirit person. And when I'm saying to them, because I do threaten them, but I threaten them in a really kind way, and I
nice way.
either you can go quietly, and this is the way you can go quietly, or I'll take you, and this is the way I'll take you, and that's going to be a lot more difficult for you. But I'm still saying it with respect and with compassion. Depending on what you get back, I just ignore it, because I know that's just that entity's mechanism for trying to keep itself where it wants to be. Mm-hmm. But it wouldn't matter what it was, how dark it was, how difficult it was, I would still talk to it with respect and compassion, because I've got to keep my level up. If I start sinking down to swearing at it and being rude to it,
well, I don't want to talk about Mr. Jack the Ripper, because I know that you don't like to talk about Mr.
and
Jack
he's been in my house. Horrible thing.
But when I told you, when we went back to the room and a certain member who isn't part of the group anymore started calling him a spineless shit, were the words that he used, that was when he came into the room and poor Dean got it. And then we had to do the Reiki thing, and it was just one of them moments. One of them moments, and it was split second. In fact, as he said it, because I was running the voice recorder, I've caught an EVP of him saying, I will have him. I will have him.
Oh, that's made me go cold.
So what he did, he used Dean, because Dean's a big guy. He used Dean, and Dean was going to have him. So he'd used Dean as a vessel.
Yeah.
And he was going to, and honestly, Lorraine's put a comment. I'll share it just to make sure.
Has anyone got any questions, or is there anything that anyone wants to share?
Well, Lorraine's there. She was there that night, and she was very frightening. Yes, it was. And we do Reiki. I mean, I'm Reiki 2. Hannah's a Reiki master. Shayna's Reiki 1. Lorraine's Reiki, and we had to. It was one of them moments where, what the hell has just happened? We've done Jack the Ripper. We've walked right round Whitechapel. We've done all of this. It's finished. And then he came in. But Hannah saw him come in the room. She saw the black energy come in.
Oh, wow.
And the feeling in the room changed. And then Dean started talking as him. And he started talking like, I know. And it was like, and we all jumped up. And we all did what we had to do, trying to, and we had to call on Archangel Michael. And we had to do, it was just, but like you say, and you just think, when you tell people, they must think you're absolutely nuts.
I know that, but unless you're there, because when you're there, this is what I always say to my students and people that I work with is, you will know in your body if that's real, because equally I've been at things where people have faked being in trance and faked being overshadowed, and you just know it. It's so obvious if you've seen both. It's so obvious when it's faked and when it's real. And when it's real, what I was saying about your body tells you it's real, because you are literally rooted to the spot and you're literally crapping yourself.
Honestly, you could have heard a pin drop.
Yeah, everything in your body and your soul is telling you to get out of there. But you can't, because you're helping your friends. So you have to then call on your guides and you call on your abilities, and the light will win. You know, the in my experience, love and the light will always move that thing on, even if it takes a while. And it
was one of them things we all went into autopilot. We just literally did what we had to do, and then once it was finished, we were like, shit, what the hell happened there? It was one of them moments.
But it's translating the feeling into words is almost impossible.
I know.
You know, so it's why, I mean, this is the first time I've ever talked about this properly publicly with anybody here now, because I think it's very private work anyway. But also, you do come across as a loon to some people.
Yeah, you do. Yeah,
but people who know me, they know how straightforward and grounded I am, I hope. And so I just trust that they will know if I'm saying I've had this experience, then I've had this experience, and everyone will translate it differently. But I know what I've seen. And the other thing that makes me laugh is, I'd love to know what you think about this. When you watch these haunted programs and these ones where they go off and find spirits, everything's demonic now, especially in the American ones. They find demons everywhere. Trust me, demons are not interested in that crap, all right? They want to eat energy. They want to cause havoc. They want to cause chaos. They want to cause tragedy. And they're busy in other parts of the world. They are not following around people at Most Haunted or any other spirit show. They're not everywhere. They're very rare. These real dark force energies are not easily found. They don't want to be found. They can't create havoc and misery if you find them.
Yeah.
Please don't think that they're around every corner and within everything. The thing that's some of the most dangerous energies are these attachments of spirit people that are lost or angry or carrying difficulty. The energy of difficult happenings that get attached to items. And also, you know, we've all been in the car and we've called someone a whatever 4-letter
this
word.
morning.
That is psychic attack. And if that hits someone enough times, that can affect someone's energy. So it's just being aware, you know, of what we're putting out in the world, and also, more importantly, what we're receiving, and it's taking appropriate action, I think. But when people in these programs say, oh, I saw a demon, or I always say, if I'm watching it and I'll say out loud, I'll just say, if you actually really saw what you think you saw, you wouldn't be able to talk. Yeah. Because when I come across things which are really, really dark, I am not speaking. All I am doing is focusing on clearing that thing and protecting myself. You would not sing and shout about it. And mostly you'd probably drop down and faint or throw up, or it's not fun. So anyone who tells you they're dealing with that stuff and they're being all glorifying it, trust me, they are not seeing anything close to being what we might call demonic or a dark force energy. They're not, because when you look it in the eye, literally you want to shit yourself. It's
I just like all the lovely things. I just like to go to old buildings and talk to the spirit people who are linked to it and who just come in to visit.
Yes, and this is the thing, in it, on these programs, there's so many spirit people that need our help, or just want their story heard, want their story told, want to communicate with us and show us their life and their experiences. We don't need to go and look for dark force energies.
No, we don't. We don't want that. No.
There's enough crap in the world.
I know that when we go to places, if we go back to regular places like the Dun Cow or whatever, and Jill will say, they know you're coming. I'll say, how do you know? She'll say, because these things start happening. They know it's like an excitement thing. It's like she come, you know, and then we go and then we just say, you know us, you know we are. Exactly. And then we just
want to be acknowledged. They want to be remembered mainly, don't they? People just want their story to be heard and to be remembered. And you know, it's a beautiful thing when you can communicate with spirit and you can be with them. It's the most. We are lucky. We're so lucky. Yeah, we get to see it and feel it like we do.
I know. And then luckily for us, we get some amazing photos as well. So You know,
like I said, that photo you just sent me, that's phenomenal. That
was Beverly's. It's really, really good, isn't it?
Amazing, yeah.
I mean, it was a great night. Like I said to you before we came on air.
Yeah.
She's having to sell the cafe, and it's for personal reasons. It's nothing to do with COVID or anything. She's just selling it for personal reasons. So when we went along, it was a sad night for her as well, because she was just about to hand it over, and she'd been there 8 years, and she loved it, you know, and she knew there were spirit children in there. They tugged on a penny and all that, and she was absolutely fine with it. And so we went before, and and it was a great investigation. We spoke to everybody. The man who, when it was a proper house, a big house, and his wife had a stroke, and they had a servant, and they had, you know, all of these things. And when we went back, it was like carrying on the story. You know, it was like, you know, we've been before,
wonderful.
and it was like, right, this is the last time we will come. That's what I said. And I said, you really need to, that night, Jo, the card machine was coming on. It's never been charged for a year. There was no battery in it. So every time I asked a question, it would lighten up. The fridge kept coming on and off. And the owner said, that shouldn't be happening. That only happens when you open the door and it has to kick in. She said, it hasn't been opened. So that was going on. Then the cooker upstairs was beeping. Then it was just all of these things. It was like, really, I asked you to put on a show, and you really, really have. You couldn't have done any more than you did. And then Beverly's fantastic photo. And before I went that night, and you know what I'm like for me in my bathroom, I was burning incense, and it was sage incense, and I was laid in the bath, and I was telling the girls on the way up, before actually it happened. And I was laid in the bath, and I put a beam up, as I say, and I just said, look, tonight, try your best, you know, just try your best to show me something, if it's going to be on camera, if it's going to be evidence, because we're never going to get back. It's a bit of a sad situation. We would love to come back and talk to you. And this puff of smoke came from the incense. And I had the incense burning on the sink, nowhere near me, laid in the bath. And it floated up, and it floated down the bottom of the bath, and it floated up the bath towards me, and it went in my head. Wow. As I was laid there. And I thought, that's bizarre, man. That has never happened before. And then that night, we were only there 2 hours. We were only there from 7 till 9.
And you got all that activity.
And then I've watched the CCTV. The camera moves itself in the kitchen. It moves itself about 4 times.
Wow.
I haven't watched the handy cams as yet, but we did EVP sessions. So, you know, when you ask a question, you record it on the voice recorder, then you play it back so we can actually hear it at the time. So that the owner could hear it, so that they know that we haven't messed with it. We're listening to it live. So we knew we'd got responses. And when I came back, we got about 5 minutes worth of, I asked a question and they answered it.
Wow.
Spirit voices on the voice recorder. And the other day when I was on holiday, I was watching Ghost Nation. So it's that one that from America. And all through that program, they got one EVP, and they made a TV program out of it. And I thought, we've been to a little cafe for 2 hours, and I haven't listened to it all yet, but the bits I've listened to, I've got 5 minutes worth. Wow, at one point he said, I couldn't breathe. He said that I couldn't breathe, and he said, this is not interesting, or something. I thought, I've bored him.
Thanks a lot.
There was just, and then we caught a baby crying. So there's a baby crying. So there must have been a baby died in there at some point, or somebody's lost a baby. And that was only the snippets that I've listened to. And I'm thinking, they make an hour-long TV show in America, about 5 minutes footage, and then we go for 2 hours and we catch all sorts.
Yeah.
I mean, God knows what we'd be like if we had a TV crew, because we just laugh. It's just so funny. And I don't know whether that's why we get what we get, because it's light-hearted and we have a little bit of banter.
Spirit love laughing, and they love joy. When it's really serious, there's not enough energy for them to use our energy to communicate. They love it when it's joyful. That's what Spirit want. That's what helps them manifest.
And like, even when I was playing Glenn Miller, Moonlight Serenade, to little Maggie, and I said, but don't do anything now because it's copyright and I won't be able to share it on the internet. So I just had to tell her, don't do anything, just listen to the music.
Yeah, that's so wonderful.
What's this one? Oh, this is a message off your friend. Can you see it?
I can see it. Oh, Felicia. I've experienced seeing and feeling a wizened old man jump out one of my... Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Yeah, good old Archangel Michael. Yeah, I've seen similar things, Felicia. Yeah, it's incredible, really.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I was given Reiki to somebody once, and you know when you're giving them healing, they don't let on things, do they? They think it's a big test. They don't tell you what's wrong with them.
Yeah.
They don't do
Yeah.
this, that, and the other. And I can't even remember what you called the lady, not that I would say. And I was given a healing, and she didn't tell me she had a metal plate in her knee. I nearly shot across the room. I bounced, literally. Wow. And now I'll say to people, I don't want you to tell me anything, but do you have a plate anywhere? Honestly, it knocked. I was like seeing birds around my head. I've never experienced that before, and it was she had a plate in her knee, and I just shot back. It was weird.
I think Reiki is because I teach Reiki, and it's just so phenomenal watching people's awakening when they learn Reiki and they learn to trust it. It's an incredible way to heal people.
Because people don't really know. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, I don't know whether this has happened to you. I mean, I used to do Reiki a lot, and I used to have a treatment room, and I don't now. I just more distance heal if people need it more than anything else. And how many people you've walked out the room, you've come in and they've took their clothes off? That's happened to me.
Happened to me.
Oh no, it has to me. and I'm thinking, what? No. Yeah, and I'm thinking. I said, no, it's not a massage. That's happened loads of times. That's probably why I don't do it now.
A lot more for it.
That's why I don't have a treatment room anymore. Ooh, like,
blimey.
I know, yeah, no, you can, and it's quite embarrassing. And we have laughed about it, you know. And I've said, you can get your clothes on. You don't need to strip off. And I think you've booked something, and you really don't have a clue what you're coming for.
No, and
you don't have a clue what
treatment bed, hands on. It's
clothes off, your pants. Massage oils on. No.
No. That's so funny. That's brilliant.
But and then they get amazed because your body's scanned, don't you? And then you can and when you actually point something out, it's like, how do you do that? And then luckily people then start looking into it. So it's more like an education. But I did used to do a lot of Reiki, but I don't know. I used to do far too many treatments in a day, and I used to kill myself. So I used to just wear them. Yeah. And then you'd get the whole tugging on the heartstrings of people who's got things wrong with them, and you know, you say you're a healer, you know, and then I thought, you know, I can't stand this any longer. This is.
I think for everyone, they have a certain amount of time they can do it for. It's tough. It is a lot of work. You have to be very, very strong.
But I mean, I'll distance heal. I'll do anything like that. You know, if anybody's poorly, I will do that. I would do hands-on Reiki because I really enjoy it. But then I just think, you know, people take the mick, don't they? You know, when you
always get people that will push the boundaries.
And I've come across some you know, really funny people when I've been given healing as well.
Yeah.
Even funnier when they ask, are you nude as well? Oh, now they didn't.
Felicia, now, come on. Tell us more.
There's some truth coming out. No, I never got naked.
And I've missed out on a trick here. I could have been charging a lot more. Oh, dear.
Oh, well.
Oh, bless.
So, it's 10 to 8. Time has certainly flown. I know.
Crazy.
I know. Well, I've really, really enjoyed hearing about your experiences.
Thank you for inviting me on.
I don't know whether I would ever want to experience what you've experienced, to be fair. I'm all right with angry men, and I'm all right with that kind of thing. I've told you before, we have to... It's funny because if a person from a certain era, they're still the same, aren't they? You know, like some people won't even talk to women. I'm not talking to you.
I've had that. Yep.
Yeah, I've had that. Yeah. I've had a school teacher wouldn't talk to me because I was wearing red pumps. Women shouldn't wear red shoes. So I've had that. So I kind of had to justify that the trainers.
It's amazing evidence, isn't it? Because your brain, if someone said, "Oh, you're imagining it or making it all up," your brain would never kick that up.
No.
So not for anyone else, but for you as a medium, for you as a paranormal investigator, it's wonderful evidence that you get those things, because that for you is evidence just for you that what you're experiencing hearing is real, because your brain would never kick up. I'm not talking to you because you've got red shoes on. Your brain would never do that. So then you have that, because really, it doesn't matter what anyone else around you believes. If you know what you know and you know what you're experiencing is real, you should just trust that. And that's the faith thing. So we come full circle, as what I was saying at the beginning, is having that faith in yourself and what you're experiencing, and regardless of what anyone thinks or how they operate or how they run their business or how they work spiritually, as long as you feel safe and you have that faith and trust in what you're doing, stick to that.
I now know that if we're ever trying to communicate with monks who don't talk, they can tap on a microphone in response.
And don't forget, a lot of them took a vow of silence.
I know. So they can, and now I'll say, just tap on my microphone and I'll listen to it back, and that happens. Or if they like us now, or have in the past liked us to hang a rosary, and they use it as a pendulum.
Oh, that's lovely.
So they can swing it, and
I love spirit.
Yeah. So, and I just think, even now, even though they're in the spirit world, they still have that vow of silence. They still act like they would, and I even say that to them. You've done your bit for God. You've done your bit for God now. I'm sure they wouldn't mind you, he or she, because I know you can't be, wouldn't mind you coming to talk to us, but they still don't, and they still stand there, and the whole vow. It's amazing.
They're in that reality. So lovely. That's really kind, Lorraine. She's just put, I love listening to you. That's really kind. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, she's a good lass.
I can talk for Britain, me.
Well, yeah, you've got your competition. You should have been out on the drink with us, on me, Bev and I, on Friday. I've been so ill, after.
The thing in it is, as you get over 30, drinking is not the same experience.
Towards 50. 6 hours we were out.
Wow.
6 hours in the rain.
And you still lost weight at Weight Watchers?
2.5 pounds, yeah.
I know,
but I think it's because I was freezing, and I think the body used up.
You shivered it away.
Just like that.
You've never been to that.
I've never been so cold. Yeah, go and sit in a beer garden now. Just sit yourself out there for 6 hours. I even had long johns on under my jeans. I looked like Max Wall.
Do you know, first time, my husband, he gets really cold because he's on blood thinners, and but I saw him in his thermal long johns. Wow, I laughed for 10 minutes. I couldn't stop. His little legs, he looked like old man Steptoe. Little chicken legs. It was, oh my God, it was so funny. It's just ridiculous. But 6 hours drinking, I mean, all respect to you.
I won't do it again. Not for a long time. I won't do it again. I mean, I am going to an outdoor event in July with my sister-in-law, and she can drink some. So I'm thinking, I need to put a plan into place.
Into training now.
Oh no, we're going to like a 80s thing. It's just a festival we have. So the Real thing are on. I don't know if you can remember the Real thing.
I remember them. You to me are everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, them.
Well, when I was in a band, we supported them. Back in the day, a long time ago. I don't think he'll like me because we had a bit of an argument over dressing rooms. He got all egotistical.
He didn't get naked, did he?
No. I was in his dressing room apparently, and he was more deserving of it than me. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wind your neck in.
So I'll not go and introduce myself. Can you remember me? No, let's not do that.
And it's so nice that everyone can get back to doing normal things. And I'm guessing then, with everything going back to normal, you're doing more investigations, and you're doing some public ones, aren't you?
Yeah, we've got some public ones coming up. I'm doing a few private ones where it's just literally just us. I'm doing a ghost walk next week. No, not next week. The week after at Durham. So we're going to start outside the prison where Mrs. Cotton was hung, and we're going to make our way hopefully up to the workhouse, I think.
Cool.
And then I've got some public ones. Yeah, I've got just a few, just a handful. But I am booked till March next year, so they are coming in quite thick and fast. And I've got a fair few Masonic lodges that's coming up as well.
That's going to be fascinating.
Well, do you know something? They always are. They always, and we've done a few, and then I have a brainstorm because I've released 260 books. I should release another one, And I thought, Elaine, you've done a kind of few Masonic lodges. You should do a book about Masonic lodges. So next March, we've got the oldest one in the country, the oldest Masonic lodge that's still going, and it was built in 1730 something.
Wow.
This lodge, and I've never done it before.
That's
so we're doing that. I know. And then I don't know whether you've heard of Alan Robson. He used to do Night Owls. He's like well, he's been to another Masonic lodge at Newcastle. Just done it, and apparently a chandelier moved from one room, went to another. Well, you know me.
Wow.
Have we got you back?
I disappeared, didn't I? That's weird.
You need to end this now.
Yeah, I think.
I know, that was weird. So we're going back to the Masonic lodges. One of them, it was many, many years ago, we caught a little boy. He was called George, and we caught him clear as day saying, "I'm George," and I've got a recording of him. So because I featured it in a book, but I didn't do any research, I kind of feel that I need to find out who George is and where he's linked. So that's the whole Masonic, because it's, you know, you delve deep, don't you, with the Masonic things.
Yeah.
So so what are you, before we finish, what are you up to, and where can people get hold of you? I know you do the whole wands thing, and you're into all of that kind of thing. So if anybody's interested in what you're doing, can you point them in the right direction? Because I'm sure they will be.
Yeah, at the moment, I'm taking a bit of a break from my work, just to rejuvenate. But I do have something called the Spiritually Gifted Emporium, which is where I sell all my spiritual tools. And for now, that's, if you want to get in touch with me about anything, and it doesn't have to be about what I'm selling on there. It can be about anything. Feel free to message me on there. Yeah, that's no problem. And I'm hoping to have website up and running by the autumn now, where I can, when I'm ready to get back out there. Yeah, because
I know you do motivational things as well, which I know that
I do. Yeah, support people with healing, and I love supporting women and men that just want to feel empowered and get healed and get back out there. So I do a lot of different things. I'm trained in so many therapies, but I think my focus is going to be over the next few years is helping people with their spiritual gifts and abilities, and I want that to be able to empower them to use that for their own benefit in their life. And I don't mean in a kind of, you know, the secret kind of way and all that. I mean in a real way, to be able to work with your guides, work with your intuition. And I want to teach people what I know. I want to be able to share what I've learned and what I've experienced, so they can go out in the world and maybe use those skills as well. Yeah.
Very good. But I mean, I'll share it all on the page anyway, and if anybody needs any information, I can pass it on. Yeah, but yes, it's been great. We've done an hour and a half.
I know, ridiculous. That flew, didn't it?
We can talk for Britain.
Thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome on here anytime you want. If you ever want to come on and have a gas, and I will get you on to Howard Hughes' show.
No,
that is my if I have the pressure, so do you. I'm live on Sunday night. It's literally not.
I can't wait.
Well, I love when you're he messaged me and I said, "Is it pre-recorded? Because it usually is." He went, "No, it's not quite the same." And I thought, "Oh, I'd really rather it was pre-recorded."
Oh, I can't wait. I'll be listening. I love Howard. I love when you're on with him.
I think it's 11:15. Oh, I'll have to stay awake. God. And the thing is, you know,
once a Red Bull.
once I've spoken to him, I really find it hard to come down.
Yeah, so I can't kite the adrenaline,
because especially when it's live, and if it's pre-recorded, he makes mistakes all the time. So I'll just do that again, and he'll record it again. Well, no, you can't record it again. I don't even know what we're discussing. It doesn't give me a clue, so it could be anything.
But you have such a good rapport with him. It will be great. He loves you.
Well, I've told you before, he tells me, well, he used to when it was pre-recorded, he won't if it's live. He used to crack a joke. He used to tell me something really funny. And then he used to going live in 3, 2, 1, live. And I would still be laughing. And I'd have to curb it in.
Really good.
And I just think,
he's a sweetheart.
And he used to do it on purpose. And he'd think, you sod. Bloody making me laugh. And then you're going live. You don't even give me time. But he asks me about my weight and he needs to lose weight. And
bless him. He's so
he
sweet.
is dead canny.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I'm gonna.
All right,
I'm gonna.
my darling.
Well, thank you for coming on, and I'm sure everybody's enjoyed it as much as me.
Yeah, hi everyone.
Fascinating.
Thank you for listening.
Fascinating, but a little bit scary. So yes, it is. So take care.
Look after yourself.
And you too. I'll speak to you soon.
Bye, guys.